Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills, and welcome to the show today. Hey, we are excited about this week's show. We move on in the Masters Series. We're going to look at Program 7 today from Vince Gironda's Master Series. And also in the second part of the show, we're going to continue with the Master Series. We're going to be talking about nutrition for gaining weight. So a jam-packed show today. And, Arman, this Master Series is... well, like a big, thick novel, right? I mean, this is a lot of work for you to get through this stuff.
I was pretty surprised at how in-depth he made this particular document. So there's a lot of content in it still. So you can get a lot of training off the Master Series for sure. And it had new stuff every single session that you change it up. So he was on top of his game when he put this material together for sure.
Well, definitely a lot of great information. So I'm kind of curious, what's really involved in Program 7 of the Master Series?
Yeah, so that's another thing with each of these sections. He highlights certain aspects of training and other things that come up. And so in this one here, he talks about the mental state of training. He talks about he changes up as far as the exercises. We're going to go back to one exercise, but he's going to do 4 sets of 12, except for calves. He's a 20 to 30 rep kind of guy for the calves, which I agree with. So, but that's good. And then he talks about slant boards because when he wrote this, they were kind of a popular thing about how to train your abdominals. And he said that those are going to be a thing of the past. And so we're going to talk about why that happened. And they really, they're not that beneficial. And then he does a deep dive to nutrition as far as a hard gainer, people that struggle to gain weight. So we're not going to get all the way in that deep dive, but we're going to hit the high points of if you have a hard gainer, some of the things that he recommends. So it's all really good. I mean, it was very in depth in this section. So I had to kind of filter through everything because there's no way we get the show done if I went through everything he put in there. So.
Right. Well, in sports, a lot of times they talk about mental toughness and how important that is because, it seems like a lot of the top athletes out there have that mental toughness, ability to overcome adversity. And, you mentioned the mental state. I was curious, what exactly was all that about, Arman?
Well, initially, this is where Vince talks about being physically disciplined, and this is really critical for success. And he also talked about you need to visualize that you're already achieved where you want to be as part of this mental state. So make that what he called it a desired state of being, as he put it. And then at the end of the day, what it all basically means is you should concentrate on everything you're doing and every movement, every rep, the whole thing through your training and your nutrition, and not be distracted. He said that these are the things that he's noticed with a lot of champions. They don't get distracted, so that they just focus on the task at hand to get as much out as possible.
So he felt that this was very critical to success?
Yeah, so this is something he observed with all the different professionals that he ran into and the different champions he even worked with is it was a very distinctive trait. They had a game plan with each and every workout, and they got in there, and it was all about that, and they're in and out. They didn't stand around, talk, and engage people, which you see a lot in the gym. It's just they're in there, they're doing their training, and then they're out of there. So. And he just felt like that was one of the traits that was very distinctive for each one of the champions.
Interesting. So curious, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I got to agree 100%. I mean, I found myself naturally doing that anyways, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that I'm trying to better myself and I'm trying to understand, if I do it this way, is it going to get the result I'm looking for? And you don't want to be talking to somebody when you're trying to do this, because you're trying to learn. That's a part of the learning process, in my opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
so each rep that I'm doing, I'm trying to make sure I was doing it as correctly as possible, making sure I'm giving all the effort that I can. And then I'm also focused on my rest periods, not going too long, to make sure I'm keeping the pressure on, keeping the intensity up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really helped me for my long-term sustainability of just keeping on training, because training is pretty monotonous over time, because if you're doing the same sets and reps, that's going to get boring. So
Mm-hmm.
these are techniques that people come up with to keep it interesting. But you've got
Gotcha.
to focus and concentrate on everything. So I agree 100%.
Well, as we've went through the Master Series, we're on number 7 today. We talked about a lot of different types of training and exercises, but is there another kind of change in training at this stage?
Yeah, so he just, again, at this point, he just simplified the training a little bit more. And so
Mm-hmm.
he just picked one particular exercise, and then you're going to do 4 sets, 12 reps. But the caveat to that 4 sets of 12 reps was he wanted you to do some creative cheating on the last 4 reps, as part of, except for the calves. He stayed in the
Right,
20,
right.
30 rep range, but he wanted you to do 4 creative cheating reps, again, to help push yourself a little bit more. So basically, it's 8 quality reps with some forced reps, is another way of putting it. And just a way to cheat through the movement.
Okay, you said forced reps. Tell us about what forced
Yeah,
reps are.
good question. All right, this is where when you're training, you typically want to have a spotter to help get you through the full range of motion, the reps, get you through those sticking points.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're doing a bicep curl and you're starting to get hung up about midway, you got somebody
Mm-hmm.
there that can help kind of ease that weight past the sticking point. Then you can come back up, and then again, fight the weight all the way back down, and then
Okay.
repeat again, have somebody help get you through the reps. So you just have some assistance. So you're pushing yourself to get through the sticking points to see if you can fatigue even more muscle fibers. And they're very
Mm-hmm.
effective. So I really like them too. Now, if you don't have a spotter, though, that's where that's a challenge. So what I would say is probably be best to do rest pause training, where you do as many full reps as you can. But if you haven't got to your 12 yet, then rest for like a 10 to 15 count, and then go again with full range reps, because that's a similar effect where you're really forcing the body to have to push a little bit more than what it's normally used to. And you repeat the rest pause until you get all them reps done. So
Okay.
that would be another approach if you didn't have a spotter.
Earlier, you had mentioned about slant boards being a thing of the past. Do you still actually feel that way? I mean, is that accurate?
Well, I used them in my day, but that's because they were there,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like I had them in the high school. All the high school gyms
Right,
had them.
right.
It was one of the most popular things out there. They had that angle where you're laying back and you got to come up to engage to what you thought were going to engage the abdominals. But
Mm-hmm.
Vince is like, no, all you're working is a psoas muscle, and that's really not working the abdominal area. So he he hated the thing, and he also felt like, because the angle, the way your spine is hanging, that it's going to cause potential injury to the vertebrae. So that was another thing he didn't like about it. So
Gotcha.
he went on to say in the document that he had proven it simply to be wrong to do that, and that what he had proven was using a flat surface to keep the vertebrae flat, so you're not going to irritate the back. And he felt what he showed produced superior results versus using a slant board. So that's why he said, yeah, this is not going to continue. Now he also mentioned that by putting the angle and using a slant board, that stress is also going to affect the solar plexus area, which is in the chest area, also known as this, he calls the second brain. He felt why that overstimulation of that is also going to cause you to affect your hormone levels. He felt it affected the hormone depletion. Now, I'm not sure where he got all that from, but that's what his
Right,
statement
right.
was. So, with those days, there wasn't a lot still known about hormones and stuff, but he felt very strongly about it. So that's why he felt like, oh, this isn't going to work.
That's well, he didn't just kind of make things up. It was because of trial and error, and he knew what worked and what didn't work, right? So
yeah,
I am kind of curious about what exercises or his suggestion to actually work the abdominals. Did he have a thought process on that specifically?
So at this particular stage of the document, this is where he was talking about frog sit-ups. He called them set-ups is what he called them.
Huh.
But
okay.
what you do here, you lay on a flat board or lay flat on a floor with a pad or whatever, and you put your legs in a frog type position, and you put your hands behind your head, and you come up, you keep your chin down, you come up just enough to contract the abdominal area, because it's it runs from your sternum to your pelvis, the abdominal area. So you just want to contract that and keep it a short range, because it's a short range muscle anyways. And he's he did it himself, and it's very effective. I've done them, and they are effective, and they burn really well. So you don't need to do a lot of reps with them either. If you do hold it for a certain amount of time to contract it, and then come back and stretch and repeat. So that's where he introduced the frog setup as part of it. And then he moved on to the concentric crunch, which was a little bit different than the frog setup, but that was the thing that he really pushed as a better alternative with that document.
Interesting. I never heard of that. So yeah, I found that pretty. Okay, that's actually cool. Okay, so here we are in the Master Series at number 7. Were there certain exercises that he suggested or that he would recommend for this?
Yeah, like each section, he's just picking other movements that he felt would be ideal, I think, based on the amount of sets you're doing and the amount of reps. So in this one here, he's with the pecs, he just does the wide pec dip, which he was a big fan of anyways. It helped work the overall pec or the lower pec. And then he just does a lat pull for the lats. Now from there, I'm not sure why he didn't do anything for the row movement, but I think you really should, and we'll talk more about that. But then for delts, it was just a lateral raise. He had different versions of lateral raise, but he just had the standard lateral raise. And then for biceps, this is where he introduces what's called the perfect curl or the complete curl. And there's a lot of mechanics to that particular exercise. I've attempted it, and if you do hit the angle just right, it does really max out the bicep. But it's a kind of a technical move, and you're not gonna be able to show it here on video or that, but it is one that you can look up online and find. Some people have tried to attempt it, but this is where he introduces the perfect curl, as he calls it. And that's for the biceps. And then for the thighs, he does he always did front squats anyways, but he does with a different variation of the front squat. So this was where he introduced the burlesque bump squat. And again, so we had the bar in the front of the shoulders, and you have your feet elevated on the board, and you lean forward to stretch the quads to come back, and then you bounce your hips back, then you lean forward again, and then come straight up. It's called a burlesque bump. That's a very effective exercise. It's it's pretty tough. So I gotta say he's really creative with that. And then for the calves, he's just doing the toe raise. Again, the rep scheme was 20 to 30. So anything you can do a toe raise on a block typically is what he was suggesting on there for this particular one. So okay,
so so I'm sure everybody's kind of curious how long you would do this routine.
All right, so like most of these routines, they weren't really stipulated. So my opinion would be you just keep doing it as long as you can, as long as you're getting results. So that can range from, it could be 6 weeks, or it could be 16 weeks, which is like 4 months, that kind of thing. Depending on how you're responding. So that's the thing you have to decide on. And if you're getting stronger, you're making good gains, then I would probably keep going with it, because it is going to level out. So in a nutshell. But one thing I forgot to mention is with this routine here, it looked like it was just upper body one day and then lower body the next day. So that's how that was kind of put together, because again, fundamentally, it's just that amount of sets. So, no, I'm incorrect. It was pecs, lats, delts, day 1, tricep, bicep, day 2, and then legs, day 3. Sorry about that.
Legs, day 3.
Yeah, that's how you had to split up. Yeah.
All right. So as we've progressed through the Master Series, I know you've done a lot, but as we wrap up the segment, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah. So when you're doing the exercises, I would myself plug in some other exercises to kind of change up things and hit other parts of each muscle group. So, if you're doing the dip for the pecs, other alternatives would be do some fly work on another session, and then maybe another workout, do some presses, to kind of change it up and kind of round out everything. Because you can do some incline dumbbell chest presses to hit that upper pec if you wanted on one week as well, as an example. And then do something on back day instead of doing, a lat pull, maybe do a row movement the next session, again, to change it up. So you're working the thickness of the back, and there's different kind of row movements, dumbbell rows or barbell rows, machine rows, that kind of thing. Throw in some on the shoulder day, throw in some shoulder presses, things along those lines to change it up. Maybe some rear deltoid movements. And then for triceps, I really like close grip bench press. I think that's just a bread and butter move for triceps. It really helps my development of the thickness. But other than that, you could do regular tricep extension movements as another alternative. And then on the perfect curl, complement that with a drag curl, or complement that with a hammer curl, something to change that up. And then for legs, instead of doing the squat, do a leg press or a hack squat, and then, work your different foot positions there to kind of incorporate all these different things. This gives you good variety and helps to change it up.
Right.
And then on the calf raises, you can do a standing calf, you can do a seated calf. You've got a lot of variations that you can utilize for that. So that's kind of what I would do if I was going through this, and to kind of challenge yourself, but also change it up and keep it fresh.
Well, a lot of great information on the Master Series by Vince Garanda, Program 7. Arman and I were going to continue with the nutrition for gaining weight after the break. So stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Arman and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills. And before we get started into Program 7, gaining weight, nutrition for gaining weight.
Hard gainers.
Yeah, sorry about that. We want to talk a little bit about Vince's Gym. Right now, take advantage of an amazing offer. Right now, you can get into Vince's Gym at nspnutrition.com. 76% off right now. I'm just running this ad for a short time. I would highly suggest that you take advantage of this. Arman, there's a lot of great information and content in Vince's Gym. Why don't you give everybody an idea on what they would get?
Yeah, so you had different programs. You can do the 21-day challenge, but after you get done with that, then you have an alternative now. You can go to Vince's Gym, and that's where you can get the 8x8, the 6x6, the bulk course, and then the maximum definition course to take your training to another level and to change things up. And all the exercises are in there. They all have video, and they're all manageable through the app that they have. So it's pretty cool. So I would give it a try. It's not really expensive right now, and see how you like it. I think you're gonna learn a lot. So that'd be my thoughts.
I agree. So head over to nspnutrition.com. You'll see it right on the front page, 76% off.
Yeah.
Just click and you can join Vince's Gym today. All right. So thanks so much for that. And let's start on Program 7, Nutrition for Gaining Weight. It's kind of hard for me because guys that I always hung around wanted to lose weight and gain muscle, right? So to gain weight, it's hard for me to understand it. So what did Vince focus on regarding weight gaining nutrition, Arman?
Well, see, that was my situation. I was a hard gainer. So, and yes, this is for the guy that's probably more ectomorphic or ectomesomorphic. I was
Right.
ectomeso. And what that means is you can eat a lot of food, but you just don't gain any weight. Women hate it, and other people get jealous of it because they can
Right.
eat what they want and they don't gain weight.
Right.
Basically, you have a higher metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when it comes to this, Vince had to figure it out because he had to help a lot of different people. And he, in this section, he talked about, maintaining a 28-inch waist, which is what I had as well. It was actually 26 when I started. And then he said, based on how he did the weight gain strategy, you could gain up to about 60 pounds of quality weight. And this was focused on eating smaller quantities of food 5 to 6 times a day rather than trying to stuff themselves all day long.
Right.
Now,
Right.
I kind of agree and I disagree at this point based on what I've learned. But I will say, if you are a hard gainer, this is definitely something that you can give a try to see if it does help you. It's just that it's not too realistic in today's society trying to eat 5 to 6 regular meals. So to me, it would be a little different. I would approach it differently, but that's what he talked about in this particular part for the hard gainer.
I am kind of curious, did he have certain type of recommendations when it comes like to proteins and fats and carbs?
Oh yeah, like usual. He said carbs build fat, so he's like, never muscle. So he just hated carbs. But then he goes on to talk about protein is builds muscle and using fats. And if fats can be used for energy, why even use carbohydrates? Just use fat.
Right.
So, but he does also address that in other documents. But during this time period, he was having a lot of success with not really having many carbohydrates at all. So that's why he made that statement. Now, he also talked about when you're consuming fat or when you're consuming protein and you're having fat, you want to have 25% of the food you're eating in fat to help digest the protein if you want to maximize your protein absorption. He was just a very big believer in this. So, in the point he makes on this is typical fats from meats are around 19%, give or take. And so that's why he suggests having butter or some other fat on top of that to get to that 25% consumption of fat to help maximize the protein. So that was another thing you mentioned. And this is to kind of keep the metabolism regulated, so just burning fat the whole time, and you're not storing it because you got to burn energy. So this is a good useful energy. And then on my side of the fence, I would say that you do need carbs, okay, but you should use them strategically so you don't get the overspill, which people get all day long. So, but you use the carbs like after you train for recovery because you want some insulin to spike up and push those nutrients into the cell. So I like using high glycemic carbs after I train with the protein I'm having, okay, because you want an insulin spike and then drop right back down. You don't need a lot of carbs. Typically like 15 to 30 grams is pretty effective because you're just trying to replenish the muscles and start the recovery process back up. Then in the evening, if you're pretty lean, then you can have some more of the high glycemic carbs to get another insulin spike to help again push the evening meal into the cells very effectively. But you do a lot more carbs in that strategy because what's going to happen is you're going to reload the muscles of the liver completely, and you'll get the insulin spike to come up, which will cause your serotonin levels to come up, which is going to convert to melatonin, which is going to cause you to get sleepy and drowsy, which will help with your sleep and put you in a better sleep so that you get that deep sleep cycle and that REM sleep cycle. So that's some other things on my thoughts about how to use carbs so you don't get excess body fat from it.
Well, it seems very advantageous to get into that cycle because it seems to fix a lot of things once you do, right?
Oh yeah, it's very effective. I mean, and you can always cut back your carb intake if you feel like you're getting a little too smooth looking. But I've done this strategy for years, and you'll maintain a six pack all year long. Once you lean out, it's easy to maintain a six pack with these strategies. And you can have high glycemic carbs. those are the bad carbs. So that's sticky white rice, it's white potatoes. You can have some mashed potatoes, you can have some corn, some peas, some homemade cookies, homemade breads. So it's a good complement to things you're doing. So I think it's a win-win. That's my perspective on it.
Interesting. Okay. Well, did he have some other info, or did he actually mention some other things regarding this?
Yeah, so he's gone into pretty good depth with his current knowledge at this point. And this book was written in the 50s. So, he made a statement that you can only digest, 20 grams of protein per meal. Now, he didn't really elaborate on that. He just made that a statement. So probably with some studies he saw that's what it said, because there's a lot of hot debate on that too. And then he felt like eating red meat was the best source of protein because it increased your red blood cell count, which increases your oxygen level, which increases your stamina and things like that. And he also learned that with beef liver as well. And then he said nutritionists at the time were suggesting that a male could consume approximately 3,000 calories a day for a typical male. And then again, this is a generalization. And he also thought that was enough to gain weight, but if they were derived from protein and fat, you would gain weight, but you would gain quality weight. So done this way, you could actually lose as much as 20 pounds of fat in a 90-day period. So that's a statement he made in the book. And I'm just kind of quoting that. So kind of take that as is, but that was what he said. If you had 3,000 calories, you could still lose some body fat because you're eating protein and fat and you're training. So you're going to be burning all those energy. You're still going to lean out. And that's how you kind of prepare for contests as well. And then high protein and fat meals, he was very big about do not eat those with a high starch food source. So because that's just going to convert to fat, because you got so much insulin coming up, and you're going to overload the overfill the muscles in the liver, so the excess is going to go to the fat cells. So just have your protein and fat. Don't have some starchy carbs with it. Now you could have some vegetables, but they need to be non-starchy vegetables. So he highlighted that, and then he also said eggs and milk have the highest fat content. But they're still only about 19%. So that's where he's kind of advised you can have some additional fats on top of that if you're having that, so that you can, some oils like olive oil or something like that, coconut oil, that can help optimize your protein digestion to get that 25% rule going. So he's really big on that during this chapter.
Wow, that's a lot of great information, man. I'm curious, what did he say about protein staying in your system? Because you were talking about a certain percentage. I think he said 20%.
Yeah. Well, 20 grams. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of debate about that. You're absolutely right. But how did Vince talk about the protein staying in your system, Arman?
That's a good question. Actually, it's a great question. In his viewpoint, he stated that science has established, that's what he says, that protein only lasts 3 hours in your system, in the bloodstream, but it takes 4 hours before it reaches your bloodstream. So after you digest it, it takes about 4 hours to get into there. Then it lasts about 3 hours. So that's where you get in this have something every 3 to 4 hours strategy. So you constantly have enough protein to keep protein synthesis flowing. So pretty big on that. He also said that, since he was a big fan of protein supplements, is that when he started learning about that, that's when he started experimenting with liquid amino acids. And they're pretty brutal to take. Okay. I've tried it myself, and it tastes brutal, but he was a big fan of them. If you could stomach them, he felt that was a great way to supplement keeping enough amino acids in your system, because they don't have to be processed by the liver. Like when you eat protein, it needs to be what he called, go through a process called hydrolyzation before it can be put into the bloodstream. So if you have amino acids or supplements available readily that break down pretty quickly, like we have with NSP nutrition, you're going to bypass the hydrolyzation process, and so they're going to be in the bloodstream really rapidly. So he thought that was something that's pretty important. And then another thing he said, it was I thought was interesting too is raw meats digest within an hour and a half, raw meats. So, something to kind of keep in mind there versus cooked meats take about 4 hours. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of having, what do you call it? Rare. My meat typically is rare.
Right.
I don't have any kind of red meat. Of course, a lot of people might freak out like, oh my God, how can you even eat that? But
right.
All you're doing when you're cooking red meat and other meats is you're just trying to break the carbon bonds when you heat it up. So, and then you kill any bacteria, breaking the carbon bonds, and it'll digest. But just you're going to have actually some raw type of meat, technically raw, that it's going to break down and digest pretty quickly. So that's the advantage of having less overcooked meats. It's going to break down and get in your system. And there's all kinds of debate on that, but I like it. And my wife thinks I'm a nut job for this, but I've never had a problem with having rare meat. And if the restaurant won't do it, I'll have medium rare. But all my red meat is rare, and I know it digests really well. So that's another thing. And then one last thing on this is, you said up to 2 hours after exercising, the body is going to assimilate 80% of the protein that was digested. So that was another unique statement I've never heard. Okay, so let me just say it one more time. Up to 2 hours after exercising, training, the body will assimilate 80% of the protein ingested. So what this also means is, like, I'm a proponent of doing fasting. When you do fasting, that can help get rid of any undigested proteins. Because again, not all the proteins are going to be broken down and be usable. So that's where fasting can help. So that's another thing I just want to kind of highlight. But he's pretty. I think he's pretty accurate on this stuff. Now, obviously, he read it through people that had already done research too. He didn't make it up. He read, because he read a lot of books. So, anyways, it's kind of a long, drawn out explanation there.
Well, Arman, you did also mention the digestion of the protein, and protein's already hard enough on your system when you intake it to digest. That's why NSP has the digestive enzymes, and the probiotics is to help move that through your system. But to me, if you have a thought process about the rare meat, I would highly encourage everyone to at least try it, because the thing that I found out, because I used to be a well done guy, I have to admit, I was a well done guy, but I tried rare, and there's more flavor in rare than there is in well done. Well done is like you're getting like the fire, the flame, you're getting that taste. And there's nothing wrong with it if you like that, but the rare, you're tasting the flavor of the protein. I mean, and it's much better.
There is an argument about the well done, that you're going to get more carcinogens from the way the meat's overcooked from the well done. There's some arguments on that. So that's another reason why I don't do the well done myself. So
yeah,
but you're right. Yeah.
Try the rare, man. Oh, you won't go back once you try rare. The flavors are amazing. All right, so moving on. What did he say about gaining weight? I'm curious what Vince had to say about gaining weight.
Yeah. All right. Well, first off, he really recommended 10 beef liver capsules every 3 hours. So I was like, that's pretty interesting. I do the 10 myself. But in those days they were tablets, so they break down a little slower. They weren't. I don't think they were as good, but these capsules that we make today, they're really efficient. So he wanted that to happen. He's a big fan of having certified raw milk and having that during the day at what he called coffee breaks. So that was kind of an accepted thing in those days. So instead of having, when you had your coffee, you have some certified raw milk. That's something you can't even hardly get today. It's like pulling teeth to try to find that. But he was a huge fan of that, because the reason for that is because the enzymes were still active in the raw milk. When you pasteurize, you tear those enzymes up. And he wanted those enzymes to be available for better absorption, because you get a lot of casein, which is a long-burning amino acid from raw milk. But certified raw milk is as he put it. And then after that, he had his own set of rules for people that what he called were underweight or a hard gainer.
Okay, so I want to hear these rules. Tell us about these rules for the hard gainers.
Yeah, these are kind of interesting. Some of them I agree with, some of them not so much. But at that time, he's like, never overeat. And he felt like if you overeat, it would cause weight loss because you want to eat later, because he wanted the 5 to 6 meals, would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to eat small meals every 3 hours. And that was, again, to have protein in the system constantly. Never allow yourself to get hungry. Some of that's debatable if that was a big deal.
Right, right.
No smoking, no smoking at all, because that's not good for the capillaries. And then 8 hours, the 8 hours of smoking, and his research stated that you'd burn 25 milligrams of vitamin C just by smoking. So I was like, all right, that's kind of interesting. I never heard that before. So that's a new statement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the accuracy of that, it's hard to say. Number 5 was, always eat something before retiring, before you go to bed. So some of the things you got to be careful there. But if you're just having protein and fat, probably not a big deal, because you're not going to have insulin come up. Because even if even though you may only digest 50% of the protein, and the rest of it's going to be converted to glucose, it still does not cause an insulin response. So you're going to probably be okay with that if you just have protein and fats before bed. So I kind of get what he was saying there. Number 6 was to regularity in your eating. The more consistent you are with the habits, then the body likes that. It thrives on regularity because it knows what's going to happen. He thought that was pretty important. And the same thing with the workouts. Keep everything real regular. Number 7, you get control of your emotions. So I thought that was like, okay. And he says nervous energy causes you to shut off your endocrine system because of the stress. And it probably was getting at, and that in those times was cortisol. So if you get too stressed out and can't manage your emotions, as he put it, then your cortisol level comes up. Then that's going to cause problems with putting on weight or putting on muscle, because it shuts things down. So probably good point there. Then number 8 was to always maintain a full satisfied feeling. I'm not sure the big pluses on that, but obviously if you're satiated, that's good. But you got to, if you're satiated the whole 3 hours later, then that's another issue, I would say. But even though you're having smaller meals, you still wanted to stay satiated and full. And then number 9 was to calm down and conserve your energy, which I did that naturally, because if I had a hard laborious job, which I had for a period of time, I had to eat extra food to overcompensate for that laborious work, because you burn a lot of energy. Right. So that made a ton of sense. So you just got to, do less, try to minimize what you're doing, so you can conserve as much energy as possible for your training, and then not overburning, because you have a higher metabolism when you're a hard gainer. And then number 10, he was really big on, and this is in most of the documents I've read, about laying down or sitting at an angle for better stomach action to absorb your nutrients. I mean, he was just, you want to elevate your feet, sit down, and just give yourself a time for the food to digest. He felt like this allows 1/3 of the blood in the body, because it's going to pool when you eat, to concentrate in the area and then maximize the digestion. So he was a huge believer in that. So, and it does, your blood does pool in the stomach to help with the digestion process. I get that, but he wanted to maximize how long that blood stayed there to get those nutrients into the system, and then it's going to circulate throughout the body. So pretty amazing as far as how he came up with all this. So,
well, pretty amazing, because you're saying this was in the 50s. And look where we are now, and we're still talking about it. The guy definitely did a lot of research, a lot of homework, and knew what was going on for the most part, right? I mean, this is great stuff.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time by far, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of interesting things. You got anything else for us?
Yeah, he also had a statement in there, and I thought this would be interesting for people to hear, is during this time, he said, here's a European tip, as he called it. And this is where he recommended drinking equal parts of half and half, or cream, one or the other, mixed with ginger ale, Okay. And then you drink that like 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m. As a weight gain drink. So half and half or cream, equal parts. So let's say 6 ounces of half and half, then you'd have 6 ounces of ale, ginger ale, that you could mix together and drink that. I was like, wow, that's because that is probably the precursor to where he goes into the 12 eggs, throw the 12 eggs in and throw the protein powder in and all that drink. But he said that was a European tip that he had picked up. So I thought, well, that'd be something good to mention. And then he also mentions, breaking the rut, because of when you're eating 5 to 6 meals and you're eating a lot of protein and fat, you are going to develop mucus. And I believe this too. So the way you clear out the mucus is which builds up in the intestinal tract. It's just trying to digest all this food. He really suggests taking the psyllium seed or psyllium husk, psyllium seed, and take that before bed and keep using that until that mucus clears out. But he would recommend you do that every 6 months. So, it may be several weeks you take this stuff to clear the mucus out of your system. Now, I'm not sure how you check the mucus is out, but he's very adamant about doing that. And he's stated that in a lot of different documents as well.
Wow, a lot of interesting stuff, Arman. We are running out of time, so any final thoughts?
Yeah, the other thing is he was a big proponent, eat real food. Now, how many times have we said this, but eat real food, because there's nothing in processed food. And then because he felt like if you ate processed food, you're more likely to overeat, and you're overeating food that is not high in high density nutrients. So, and if all you gotta do is look at society today. I mean, it was pretty obvious. I mean, our weight problem is huge, and it's just with all this processed food, pure and simple. It's not about the fat. And I'm seeing more and more studies now saying fat is fine. You got to get rid of all this crap processed food and then all the sugar. It is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So anyways, that's a whole nother can of worms, a whole nother statement some other time, but just had to throw that out there.
Well, that's the Master Series Program 7 by Vince Garanda. Not only nutrition, but the program itself. And Arman, we appreciate, man, all the reading, studying, and all the information that you give to us every week. And I know our fans do too, because we're seeing more and more comments on YouTube, and we're getting more information. I know you've been responding to them, but this is terrific news. Kind of a little bit crazy activity here, huh?
Well, that's what we want. We're trying to help people and help them better understand and learn from somebody that really learned a lot early on and is spot on. So, there are some exceptions, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it's still accurate. So let's keep moving forward with that.
Absolutely. Now, if you want to comment, if you have a suggestion for a topic for the show, any feedback or anything, we definitely want to hear from you. Now, if you watch the YouTube show, as Arman said, you can comment right underneath, or if it's a very long comment, or maybe you have a couple of comments, hey, you can email us, and you can send that to support@nspnutrition.com, and Arman and I will get that info, and who knows, maybe your topic or question will be the subject of our next show, and we would appreciate that. So, Arman, another great show. Thanks so much for all you do, man.
Well, no problem. Really enjoy it, and looking forward to the next one.
All right, and thank you all for joining us, whether you're listening or watching, and join Arman and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.